Okay, so now we're going to have a little fun, a little dream to kind of help you think about what you really want your landscape to do for you. Let's say I'm giving each of you, everybody in this class gets $100,000 to just do whatever you want with your landscape. And the money has to be used on your landscape. So just think a minute about how you would use that money. You know, what do you want, your ideal dream? What do you want your landscape to do for you? And maybe you've already thought about it and you know, but if not, just give it some thought. Do you want to use it for entertaining purposes, for family and friends? Do you want your landscape for visual beauty, cut flowers, scents, smells? Do you want to create tranquil paths that you can just walk around and meditate? Do you want to use it for sports? This is a putting green. Do you want to create children's play areas for your kids or your grandkids? Do you want to grow your own food? Do you want to have an orchard? Again, cut flowers. You know, how do you want to use your landscape? And it's going to be different for everybody. So this presentation it's broad. It's kind of an umbrella, big picture thinking. Or you want to use your landscape for relaxation when you have free time. So for content, to get to this affordable landscape that hopefully you're dreaming and thinking about, there's 3 principles or ideas that could help you get there. Number 1 is just to tidy your landscape. Number 2, to give your landscape structure. And number 3, implement your plan. So tidy your landscape. That seems kind of obvious, but it's not as obvious as it seems. I know this last weekend, well, after the storm, you guys probably experienced it in your homes too. We had twigs and leaves. We had debris all over our property. And my husband and I spent some time cleaning it up. And I wish I took a before and an after, because it was like, wow, this really looks nice. It makes such a difference. So what do I mean by tidy or clean up? Pick up any unused items. You know, there might be this, I don't know, tool or something that's been sitting in the, wherever forever. Just pick it up, tidy it. It just makes a huge difference. And that helps you too, if you're having troubles visualizing how you want to use your landscape. Start with this. And then you can go from there. Just sometimes cleaning up helps you to see things better. So pick up any unused items, pick up any natural landscape debris, which is what we did this weekend, and mulch, mulch, mulch. That's a good place to start. There's this debris, twigs, and then mulch, mulch, mulch. Mulch is just, why mulch? It keeps weeds down, it keeps the moisture in, improves the soil, and it looks good. And I think somebody else has done a class on mulching. Is that true, Gary? I think so.
It is.
Yeah. So I can't encourage that enough. If you have an area you just don't know what to do with and you're tired of the weeds, just put 3 to 5 inches of mulch over it. And I do go into it a little bit. And how do I sheet mulch? You can cut the weeds down or the high grass, or you can just squish them down with cardboard. And you can wet the cardboard. That's even better, but you don't have to. The main thing is you want to get like 3 to 5 inches of mulch or wood chips. And there's free arbor chips, arborist chips, and there's resources on the Master Gardener website. Call a local tree trimmer, have them delivered. It's just a great way to clean things up. And this was an area in front of our house. It just had like a ragged edge, and I wanted to clean it up. So we sheet mulched and just put some rocks around the property to give it a nice clean edge. Okay, so examples of cleaning up. These are just some before and after pictures. And there's, no big investment here. Those look like rocks from the property. they just cleaned it up. And it's just like, wow, that looks so much better. And it didn't cost anything except for some sweat and toil. And here's a before of a property, and those are the afters of that same property. And it's just really cleaning up. Yeah, they purchased a few items, but it's mostly cleanup. Here's another one. Just an alleyway between two houses or on the side of a house, and mostly just cleaning things up. This one has a little bit more construction to it, but the biggest improvements are cleaning it up. Okay, the other point is to give your landscape structure or bones. And that means you want to create a master plan and not just do things haphazardly. And you want your master plan to reflect what you want your landscape to do for you. And then you want to create a hierarchy within your plan. Excuse me. And then you want to use repetition. So create a master plan. It can be as simple as like this bubble diagram here. I did for a property. Yeah, start there. What you want to happen where based on the sun. And, as far as creating a landscape plan, Roxanne did a really good, she did landscaping with native plants, and she talks about creating a master plan there. So that's a good resource, because I could talk about this for the whole time. And this was a rough master plan I did for a client that had a large property. It's kind of the next step after the previous plan. Yeah, and so create hierarchy. And what I mean by that is you want to have a focal point. You want to have like rhythm and a purpose to your plan. You don't want just continue just everything competing for your interest. I like to create axes within my plans, thresholds and portals where you're going from one space into another, really thoughtfully designed. Yeah, so create hierarchy. So there's, yeah, like when you listen to music, there's the loud fortissimo, and then there's the pianissimo. I think it is a quiet. You want different things at different times in different places, not everything just screaming at you. Yeah, and here's an example of hierarchy. They have a focal point of a sculpture, the eagle at the end. And it's well planned out, pretty simple, but it's nice. Another principle is to use repetition. That means to, like when you're developing your property, you don't want to use 5 different kinds of stone in your garden. You want to use maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 at the most, and that they work very well together. You want to use you want to create a palette of materials that you're using in your landscape, and you want to create a palette of plants that you're using in your landscape. You don't want, unless you're creating a botanical garden, but even in a botanical garden, you want like some structure that is similar plants. You don't want one of every kind of plant you have. You want to have masses, and you might want to repeat several plants on the different parts of the property if exposures and yeah, if exposures are good, and there's a lot of other things to think about too. And that Alice did a really good seminar. I think it's called like choosing the right plant, or right plant, right place. And she has a list of resources that are just absolutely fabulous. Yeah, you really want to think about what you're planting where. So with repetition, my husband loves to do wood sculptures, and we have little wood sculptures all around our property, and it's fun when people come. Yeah, I should add some more to this. Okay, oops, why is it not? Let me see. Okay. Yep, okay. Implement your plan. This is the third principle as far as doing an affordable landscape. So once you've cleaned, you've got your idea in your head, what you want it to look like, and you've done the basic cleanup and you've done your plan. And now you can, and when it comes to the plan, if you have the resources, it's helpful to hire somebody just to get, it's a good idea for you to maybe do it first, and then you can hire somebody to get some fresh ideas and different ideas. But either way, you've got your plan. Now it's time to implement your plan. And usually you want to do, I say, hardscape things first. That's like decks and patios and paving. And then you usually do the softscape afterwards. Or you might want to choose the front yard this year, or the backyard next year. You just figure out, according to your time and resources, what works for you. This was a project that I did, and it was a young family, and they wanted lots of lawn and play areas, but they still wanted a patio. So there's a lovely little patio, and cost was an issue. So the patio is concrete, which is fine. That's what I call value engineering. When I'm working with clients, sometimes they have a budget, and sometimes they are like, let's not think about budget. Let's just design it the way we want it. And we'll design it the way they want it. It goes out to bid. It's just like, ooh, yeah, okay, well, we can't make this patio out of flagstone like we wanted. So we'll value engineer it, and we'll still have the patio we want, but it'll be concrete. And that's a good way to do things. Yeah. So they were able to get everything they wanted in a cost-effective way. They didn't get the flagstone patio, but I still think it's a lovely space. And they would have, and I don't know if you can see the fireplace there, they would have loved to have a stone fireplace, but we found a prefabricated one that was not very expensive, and they're very happy. Yeah, this was a landscape that I helped a realtor with. She had to get this property looking good in a short period of time. And we just cleaned. Edges are another thing that just, they're not expensive, and they can really make a huge difference in your landscape. Like I showed you the the sheet mulching example that in front of my house, it had like ragged lawn there. And in this lawn was all ragged, and we put a clean edge on it. And I probably had steel, I did have steel edging there, which is not terribly expensive. It's not that much more than wood edging, and it lasts forever. And I like it. I like the steel edging much better than the plastic edging, because the plastic edging always gets wavy. At least, I don't know, that's what I experience. And the steel edging just costs a little bit more, but it's solid and it looks good. So yeah, and there's a steel edging on the lawn. There's steel edging on a little gravel patio up there. That's another really inexpensive way to create a patio. Say you want a patio, you really want it flagstone, you can't afford it right now. You can do some landscape edging and some gravel until you can afford the stone patio. This was very inexpensively done, and I don't know, I think it looks nice. Yeah, and just filling in, these plants were little tiny baby plants. This client wanted like a tapestry. And there were a little bunch of baby plants. And now when she looks out, she has these swaths of color that move in the breeze. Yeah, another garden, just lots of cut flowers, fragrance, color. So that's all I have. I hope you are encouraged. And again, I just want to remind you to know what you want your landscape to do for you, to just kind of have that as an overarching thought as you see some really nice thing on sale that you think would look good in your yard. Just think, does it work in the big picture? Does it work in the big scheme? Like, for an example, say your house is like arts and crafts style, and your I don't know, you're out and you see this gazebo for sale that's more Victorian style and you just really want it, it's like, it would be better not to get it, just because if it matched the arts and crafts and it keeps your theme going, that would be good. But yeah, just don't be tempted to, less is more. I often tell people, yeah, don't be tempted to go in a bunch of different directions that you like. It's really hard, but I would encourage you to stay focused and keep on a theme, so that you're not all over the place and your design will be much more cohesive. So yeah, your landscape serves you, you don't serve your landscape. And I would just like you to think of one thing you might be able to do this week that will bring you closer to your ideal landscape. And I think, and then I have questions, but before I do questions, Gary asked me, what are some common mistakes that people make? And I just thinking about that, I think the three biggest mistakes that people make when doing their own landscapes is it's not cohesive, like I was just talking about. They've got a little of this and a little of that, and it can be a little chaotic. Just that self-discipline with the plan and staying to a theme is really helpful. And the number two mistake I would say is the wrong plant in the wrong place. And Alice does a great seminar on that. And also just the other resources I've seen on the Master Gardener website is the Firewise landscaping. I would encourage everyone to take a look at that one, because that's just really important. That's about right plant in the right place too. And the third thing is maintenance. Just think about how much time you have. There's different seasons in our lives, and sometimes we have 10, 20 hours a week to spend in the garden. And some people, we have, 2 hours on the weekend or 5 hours a month or something, and, design accordingly. Even when you have very little time, you can still have a nice landscape by using lots of mulch, using lots of natives, and just keeping it really simple. So yeah, that's all I have. So I'm open for questions. Shall I stop sharing, Gary? Okay.
Veronica had the first question, but I see her hand up. So Veronica, go ahead and go.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so I have two questions. One is when you're kind of getting started, or you feel overwhelmed, and maybe your yard got out of hand in summer because for some reason, is there a kind of a mindset that you can have in that follows the seasons? Like, it's best to do this during this season, and it's best to do that during that season. And then the other part was, how do you feel about planters, boxes, or but mostly I'm talking about like, glass or plants that you can move around the yard. How you feel about that, and if that's something to incorporate into the yard, and how?
So I'm going to talk about the planters, and then Gary, I think I've seen on the website what to do season by season in your landscape. Isn't that on the website?
There is one that refers to that.
Yeah, I would look at that, Veronica. And everybody, their yards get out of control at times. And, just when you have a block of time, I would encourage you to just say, I can take care of this today, or I've got 5 minutes, I can put that away. And it just makes you feel better, just keep whittling away at it little by little. And as far as planters, I love planters, and mobile planters are nice too. Sometimes I'll put them on wheels, like if it's around a restaurant, and a place where people want to have that flexibility. The only thing to really remember with planters is that those plants are not in the ground and you absolutely have to water them. Yeah. And also you have to think about drainage with planters. Sometimes you can have a really nice patio, and if you don't have saucers, they can make a mess. They can stain hard surfaces. I like to stick planters right in the landscape too. But I think the key thing is just to remember they do get hot and they need to be watered.
Okay. Thanks, Wendy. Great question. Is there a recording on the presentations on mulching? Again, get a hold of me at garyf@wsu.edu, and I will be happy to send you the listing of all the programs we've done, and several of those that Wendy last talked about. Next question is from Nancy. Says, I've never heard of steel edging. What is it and how is it installed?
Oh, you can Google it. Colmet is a manufacturer. Yeah, and it comes in different thicknesses. If you are doing, like for me, if I'm doing straight runs, I want them to be straight and to stay straight. So I'll use like a 1/4 inch or close to it. And if you've got some curvy lines and you want some, you can use like 1/8 inch. It just depends. And it used to be, I don't know, maybe $2, $2.50 per lineal foot. It depends on quantity too. But I haven't priced it in a while, but yeah, steel edging is awesome. But so is, on my property here, I've got, anytime I dig a hole, I have another rock. So I use rocks for my edging, and it looks nice, and it doesn't cost me anything except a little sweat and toil, but it's okay.
Next question. My neighbor 30 years my neighbor's 30-year-old arborvitae is encroaching on my yard. Any ideas for a landscaping plan to deal with that?
Wow. I would talk to the neighbor. I don't know, maybe mutually you can agree to remove it. And if not, I'm not, huh? And I'm not sure what the code is where you live. I mean, in a lot of places, any of the plant that's on your side, you can cut off. Yeah, I don't know if that helps, but I would cut it off on your side, and maybe with the neighbor. Arborvitaes, they're not really conducive to pruning, but I don't know, maybe you could together prune it and shape it or remove it.
Yeah, that gets really into a real interesting situation with neighbors, but once it comes on your area, you'd have the right to go ahead and help control that. What do you recommend to use as barriers to keep a large dog out of a specific area of landscape?
Well, I would use a fence. There are plants that will, they have spikes and spines, but I'm not into hurting animals. So, I mean, I would use a fence. And that reminds me, another cost-effective way to landscape is, it's like, so for me, I've got this, I purchased a mature landscape. And so we're gradually changing things, and I'm trying vegetables in different areas. And so instead of putting up expensive netting, deer fencing and whatnot, I just bought some bird netting, deer netting on Amazon. I don't know, it was, I got as heavy duty as I could, but it's like net-like. And then I just get bamboo poles and I just stick them in the ground where I want to plant. And I just put the net around, and it works just fine. And the thing I like about that is it disappears in the landscape, because the netting, I always get black netting, which you think green would disappear more, but usually black just disappears more in the landscape. Yeah. And so for the dogs, I mean, I would do fencing. And if you really, it's like for me, unless it's a decorative fence, I don't really want to see the fence. I love, if it's going to be more permanent, like welded wire mesh, which is just like a wire fencing, but black coated as opposed to green or the galvanized. It really disappears in the landscape on some wooden posts or steel, doesn't matter.
Okay. Next question. I'm using cardboard and wood chips method to kill areas of an existing lawn that will remain a pathway. I have other areas that I want to plant in next spring or fall, and I'm doing much of the same thing. How should I layer under the micro wood chips? Compost soil, then wood chips? What would you recommend?
You know, I have seen different people recommend different things, and I'm not an expert on this, and personally, I wouldn't get too hung up on it. So if you're putting the wood chips, okay, I'm not sure if you're going to plant or walk on it. You know, I would look at the
I want to
compost.
plan on it, Wendy. I
Oh,
want
you
to
want
like, I want to mound it a little bit in my front yard in the corners and
Yeah.
plant some conifers. So I'm wondering, do I plant in wood chips or should I put down soil and then wood chips?
I would put some soil in that area, just build it up with soil and then, yeah, and then do the well, you don't really need to do cardboard because you're not keeping weeds down. If it's, well, where you have weeds, you might want to put, if you've got some cardboard, put it down, but then you really want to get that thick layer of wood chips, arborist chips,
Okay.
or mulch from Swanson or wherever you want to get it. But the thing is, some people only end up putting like 2 inches down. No, you need to put
8 to 12 inches.
8 to 12, 8 to 12. Yeah, I say 4 to 6, 8 to 12. It depends on what you're going to plant there too. You know, if you're going to plant conifers, yeah, you can do thick. Some people, you know, they want to plant little ground covers, and anyway, you want it to be thick. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, people have asked if we would add my email address and then also the address to get to our website that shows the resources. And both of those are inside the chat. Next question, if one wants to hire a landscape architect, what should I look for?
What should you look for? I would look at, I would talk to several of them. I'd see what their process is, see if some of them have, you know, have different niches. Some people are like super modern. They like that kind of look. Some people are more into native gardens. See if that person is on the, you know, has a similar interest as you. And, you know, look at how much they're charging, look at examples of their work. Yeah, you want to have a good working relationship.
Excellent. Any recommendation for nice looking deer fencing?
Well, I was sharing, you know, it depends, you know, I like deer fencing to disappear. You know, the thing with landscape design too, the reason I keep this vague is, you know, there's right and wrongs, but there's a lot of opinion too when it comes to design. So my preference with deer fencing is black welded wire mesh. They're just like the black, and not chain link. Chain link is very different than welded wire mesh. The welded wire mesh is square, and it comes in different thicknesses. It comes in a roll, and you know, you can use posts, and if you want to frame it out, that makes it look even tidier. That makes it look really nice and sturdy. But the welded wire mesh panels just kind of disappear in the natural landscape.
Okay.
Otherwise, you know, call a fence company. As far as like cost effective, like just regular fences, fence companies are usually the most cost effective. Just a wooden fence.
Caroline has a comment. She says, I have an electric fence that cost about $2,800, and this is in the chat. But it's been effective at keeping our cats away from the bird feeders and keeping their cats inside so that they don't get out and get hit by dogs or cars, excuse me. A question, what to do about moles. I would really recommend, and Wendy, you can take this, but I would really recommend that again, look at the mold talk, because that's a whole hour subject in
Yep.
terms of what works, what doesn't work, how to control them, and just understanding the behavior of molds. So,
And Art's going to be talking tomorrow about this moles and other vertebrate pests in yards too, tomorrow night's talk.
yep. Talking about that. Veronica, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, hi. I have a question. It sounds like you do a lot of the landscape design for people. What are some tools that have like changed your life as far as managing your yard? For avid gardeners, and then maybe people that help like the elderly do their yards. What are some tools that have just really, really made a difference in your work?
Oh, wow. I mean, that's a gardener question more than a landscape architect question, but my favorite tool is my hori knife. I don't go anywhere without my hori knife and my nippers. I also love my little wheelbarrow. Of course, my gardening gloves, my little kneeling pad. But yeah, I don't know if that helps.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That catches us up again in the chat. There's several references to the workshops. If you want to see the videos, please reference that, and also my address if you want to email me, and I'll get that to you too. Other questions for Wendy? Well, this has been a lot of fun today. Wendy, thank you for sharing your time and expertise.